Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this Beyond Blue webinar on taking the pressure down. And it's about how can we navigate the stress that rises for all of us at the end of the year. My name is Luke Martin. I'm a clinical psychologist and also a senior advisor here at Beyond Blue. We are joined by a really big audience today representing the extended Beyond Blue community, our partners, our volunteers, our own staff. We're also joined by colleagues from across many sectors and the general community as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's going to be a great conversation. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands we're all joining from today. For Beyond Blue, we acknowledge the land on which our head office is based has deep connections to peoples and cultures across the Eastern Kulin Nation. As such, we acknowledge the traditional owners of this area, the Wurundjeri peoples, and pay our respects to their elders, past and present. As an organisation with national reach, we extend our respect to all elders and First Nations peoples across Australia. Beyond Blue also acknowledges those who are living with and managing mental health conditions such as anxiety and depression, their families, friends and supporters, as well as those affected by suicide. Just a reminder that we will be talking about mental health concerns today, so please remember that support is available on the Beyond Blue support service. That's 1300 22 46 36. We'll also be talking about financial distress today. So the National Debt Helpline is available on 1800 007 007. So let's get started. I am very excited about today. As you can probably tell, we have an incredible lineup of panelists. It is an absolute Christmas miracle that we've got these three people in one spot this morning. We will hear from our fearless leader, our CEO, Georgie Harman. Georgie, please join the chat. We will also hear from the barefoot investor, Scott Pape. Scott is an absolute tour de force in Australia. He has helped millions of people manage their money, take control of it, and move towards financial freedom. We are also joined by one of our fantastic Beyond Blue speakers, Megan Barrow. I have had the joy of getting to know Megan over the last few months, and it is great to hear from Megan today about how she manages her mental health during this time of year, as well as Megan helped us design a new wellbeing planning tool that we're releasing today. So thank you, Megan, very much. So the structure for today is fairly simple. We will start with some opening remarks from Georgie, and then we'll move into a series of Q&As with our panelists, and we'll end with an audience Q&A. So we really encourage you to put your questions into the Q&A box, and we'll get to as many of them as we can at the end of the session. Apologies in advance if we can't get to all of them. So I guess without any further ado, I would love to hand over to Georgie to share with us her reflections as the year winds down.
Thanks so much, Luke, and good morning, everybody. It is so lovely to see so many of you join us today. It is such a busy time of the year, and given all the challenges that many people are facing, today is, I think, an opportunity for us to come together and take stock. And I think we really need that at the moment. For many, the world feels like a really unsafe and a really divided place right now. And feeling overwhelmed can be a really natural response to the times that we're living in. And that's why it's really important that we work together to change this, because feeling safe and feeling connected are two of the most essential ingredients to good mental health. And history tells us that connection is our best way through really difficult times, and indeed a hallmark of what's helped us survive as humans. Strengthening connections, reducing divisions. This is really core to what Beyond Blue does. And as the festive season approaches, we know the mix of joy and stress it brings. It can be a great time to slow down, to switch off, to connect with people that we love, to go to Christmas parties and dress up, to do the things that you care the most about in life. But for others, it's the busiest time at work and also at home. And for many, it's a time of great disconnection and loneliness. And this year, we know that on top of all of that, there are new stressors to family gatherings, heightens feelings of loneliness, all of those things. Now, we worked with Ipsos just a few weeks ago and took a national poll. And what you can see on this slide is the result of that poll of about 1,000 Australians. For the overwhelming majority of people, 77%, are feeling really stressed as we head towards the end of year. And unfortunately, about a third of people who responded to that poll said they feel quite a bit or extremely stressed. And financial pressures are a top stressor for Australians right now. 4 out of 5 people say that the rising cost of living is having a negative impact on their mental health, with 1 in 5 saying that it's having a really extreme impact on their mental health. And that's obviously of great concern to us. But what really worries me is that less than half of the people that we talked to said that they were likely to put a plan in place to manage their well-being heading towards a stressful period. Now, we hear every day on the Beyond Blue online community forums how challenging this time of year can be. But we also see on that online community, which about 1.5 million people use every single month, the best of people, incredible people sharing advice with each other, propping each other up, cheering each other on, and giving people practical tips about how to navigate this time. And really important to know that they're not alone. I often go on and I have a look at some of the beautiful supportive messages of hope and connection that are on those forums. And there was one that struck me the other day, and this person said, it's okay to feel overwhelmed at the moment. Be kind to yourself. So while there are a lot of stresses on people at the moment, we know that one stands out. And as that data showed us, financial stress, the rise in cost of living, interest rate and rent rises are placing significant pressure on people. The experience of not being able to make ends meet, not having emergency funds to cover an out of the blue expense, worrying that you can't put food on the table, keep the lights on, or even a roof over your own head, can be excruciatingly stressful, to say the very least. But we also know from our recent work, including research with ASIC, that money and mental health can often feed each other, cause both to spiral down together and lead to significant distress and disruption to everyday life. And so it may come as no surprise to learn that this time of year, more people turn to Beyond Blue than ever. Last December, contacts to our support service were 41% higher than the monthly average. That's okay. I encourage you to reach out to us. That's why we're there. That's exactly why we're here. No worry is too small for you to reach out. And in fact, the sooner you chat to someone, the sooner you'll start to feel like you again. And at Beyond Blue, we're all about supporting people early, before things snowball and before problems become overwhelming. Because we know too often that that isn't what happens. Support is offered only once a person is nearing or in crisis. And we need to change this. And ideally, empower people to stay well in the first place. And that's what today is all about. The festive season is a great time to prioritise our mental health and to protect it. When we talk about mental health, many people still think about mental health conditions like depression and anxiety, but mental health is different. It's about good health, not ill health. And to avoid this confusion, we often talk about mental well-being. Everyone experiences a level of mental well-being, and we can improve it even if we live with challenges like depression and anxiety. There is a hard science to mental well-being, and there are many evidence-based actions that really do work to improve it. It's not about massages. It's not about kale juice. It's not about fruit bowls. What we're talking about today, and I invite you to take this message out and share it with your networks, is that we can be proactive about managing our mental well-being. And I absolutely understand, as I said earlier, that there are so many pressures at the moment that are very real and often entirely out of our control. And I know that in the face of all of the world is grappling with right now, a list of coping tips can seem trite, inadequate, a bit like bracing for a tsunami by recommending the best floaties. But there are things that can help us stay afloat, to take the edge off things and to give us the breathing space. When we take care of the basics, the bigger stuff can feel easier to manage. And a really big part of this is about finding out what works for you. What works for me is not going to work for you necessarily. What uniquely works for you, because it's all different for all of us. For me, it's about grounding myself against the big rocks in my life, my beautiful family, my friends, our pets, my work, our home. Find your rocks and let them anchor you. I've been rediscovering recently much joy of pottering in the garden. I've planted a veggie patch and I go out every night and I talk to them. And it's a really peaceful daily ritual for me. So mental well-being is nothing complicated. It's about the small actions that connect you to what's enjoyable and meaningful in your life. And mental well-being, it's a bit like a muscle. It's built by the intentional accumulation of these small moments over time. So we're encouraging everybody today to put a plan in place. And today we're helping you to do that by releasing a really simple new well-being planning tool to help you identify what works for you. Why does it work for you? And then plan ahead to undertake these actions regularly. And we've invited the wonderful Scott Pape, the Barefoot Investor, along today to share with us his really practical advice for managing end-of-year financial pressures. And we'll also hear from some of our own experts here at Beyond Blue, including Megan Barrow, a member of our lived experience community, to share how they maintain their mental well-being. We're in for a treat. I'm really excited to have a quick chat now with Scott and Megan. So enough from me. Can I ask you to do one thing if you can? If you're on a tram or a train, maybe don't do this, but take off your shoes, put your feet on the earth, wriggle your toes, and let's hear from Scott. Scott, you're a financial counsellor. We were chatting earlier, and I think we're in furious agreement that financial counselling is the greatest secret. But not a lot of people know what a financial counsellor does. So can you just tell people what you do?
So, Georgie, you're right. People don't know what financial counsellors do, but essentially what we do is we provide a service that is free, it is confidential, and it's unbiased. So we are paid by the government or various charity organisations. We are not paid by financial institutions. You can contact us on 1-800-007-007. Someone like me will answer the call. And what we do is we stand beside people and help them with their finances and help them get back on their feet. There is no charge to this. And we will talk to banks on your behalf. And we will stand shoulder to shoulder with you and try and get you back financially on your feet, or give you the tools that will allow you to do it yourself. I call it the greatest secret in the world because not enough people know about it. And if more people knew about it, they would be in a much better place. So I'm very passionate about financial counselling. And I would encourage anyone who's struggling with bills or struggling with their finances to give 1-800-007-007 a call, which is the Financial Counselling National Dare Helpline.
Oh, Scott, that's wonderful. And look, we work really closely with Financial Counselling Australia. They're really, really good friends of ours. And we were thrilled that there was a massive announcement of additional funding to financial counselling announced recently, co-funded by government and industry. So, I think that building up the capacity of people like you to answer every single call is just so important right now. So that's a really welcome development. So a bit like calling Beyond Blue, don't pick up the phone. There's you're not going to take up somebody else's place in the queue. Just reach out. It's really important. But Scott, what are you seeing as you work with people? And you're obviously an expert in this area. So what are your thoughts about the impact of cost of living pressures, and how is that playing out for people right now?
I mean, it's huge for a lot of our clients. I've never seen the rental market the way it is right now. It's incredibly tough. You've had 13 rate rises, inflation. We all know that the cost of living is going through the roof. But I guess what makes me a little different is that I don't like focusing on that because there's really nothing any of us can do about that. It's not within our control. So for me, what I like to focus on are the things that you can control. And when you start thinking about it like that, you can control a lot more than you think. So for me, it's that thing of not being caught in the doom and gloom that often gets purported by the media, and more focusing on the things that you can control, the things that you can do.
Yeah, I think that's such an important message. I mean, people often say to me, Scott, gosh, your job must be really depressing. I said, actually, no, my job is about hope. My job is about hope, and I have a lot of hope in my job because I meet incredible people like Megan who are just so incredible and live with, challenges from time to time, but get up every day and make the world a better place. And it's lovely to talk to both of you. So Scott, just going back to money, what role does money play in our end of year stress?
Well, I mean, I think from the results that you had from your survey, people are very stressed at this time. The difference that I would say is that, the common narrative is that, it's going to be a tough Christmas. There's going to be a lot of people very stressed. When I talk to people, what I kind of find is it's a little bit like dieting. No one starts a diet in December. What they generally do is say, it's been a hell of a year. I'm just going to let it all hang out and I'm going to deal with it in January or February. There's not a lot of people that are trying to, count their carbs on Christmas Day. And so for me, it's more about that idea of saying, I don't want to lose control over that Christmas period. That to me is the more important aspect. And so for me, it's more about gaining control and confidence with your money. And you don't need to be earning a huge amount of money to do that. What it is, it's a mindset of being proactive and spending money on things that really will move the dial over this period. So for us, it's food and experiences, and less on consumerist gifts and things like that. But it is making sure that you don't lose control over that Christmas period.
Yeah. And I think again, your words are about connection. Like, what are the things that as human beings, as we come together, as in often stressful situations, everybody's creating this artificial deadline that everything's got to be done by Christmas. We do it every single year, right? Yeah. What are your top tips for people?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing that we would do is just stop for sort of 10 seconds, everyone just sort of watching this, and quickly think to yourself, what did I get last year? What presents did I get last year? Most people have no idea. Most people have forgotten what they got. And I do this with my kids. I've got 4 kids under the age of 10, and they can't remember. So we spend all this effort and pressure on, having the best presents and thinking about what we're going to get people. But if I were to ask, what was the vibe like last Christmas? We all kind of know what it was like. And so for me, it's spending more time and effort and money on the things that are going to add to that experience. So for us, it's food. I don't drink alcohol. My wife does. So it's getting some special drinks. It's just really investing in, and not being a tightwad, investing in that day and that experience, but maybe not focusing so much on the presents and gifts and things. Again, if we're going to get into the confidence and control, for me, it's just those small things that you can do that sound kind of trite, but getting yourself a good bank account. I know, again, I'm kind of known for this, but if you have the right bank account that's getting you a high rate of interest, not charging you fees, every time you're spending, it's just that little dopamine that you're getting that I've made a good decision. It's the one financial decision that I've made that's good. It could be throwing some junk out. And who knows, you might actually find some presents to re-gift. It could be going out on a barefoot date night with your partner and saying, we're going to set up our buckets. Those little things are what builds confidence and allows you to not lose control and go, I'll deal with it in January or February. As we know, January, February comes around way too fast, and kids go back to school and bills mount up. So for me, it's having that mindset that says, I'm confident, I'm in control, I'm not going to be a tightwad, I'm going to spend on the stuff that really moves the dial, and it ain't gifts, because you don't even remember what you got last year, and you won't remember what you get next year.
Yeah, it's those moments, it's those conversations, right? Those moments of, or it's the handwritten note that says, I love you and I missed you this year. Or it's the, those are the things that actually fill us up and that we will remember this time next year. Let's go back to financial counselling, because there's been a really good reaction to that. Like, how does it feel when you, like, what does it actually feel like? And what happens when you dial that National Debt Helpline? Because I think what we hear is that people, because often it's the first time that someone's done that, and demystifying that process for people can be very, very helpful. So can you just step people through what the process looks like? And, I'm sure you're amazing on the end of the phone, and people go, oh my goodness, is that Scott Pape, the Barefoot Investor? But, how does it feel for people?
Well, I mean, each person comes with a different issue that they're having. Generally speaking, it will be that they're struggling with their finances, and what it is, it's just somebody who is independent, who has no bias, and is just there to advocate for you. So we just want to work out what's going on in your life and how can we help. And there is a range of things that we can do. We can talk to lenders, we can get debt collectors to bugger off, we can do all sorts of things. But the most important thing is you've actually got someone standing shoulder to shoulder with you saying, we can sort this out for you. We can actually step with you so that you can feel confident and not have that stress going on in your life. And just having someone in your corner who understands what you're going through and will stick with you, I think is just incredibly important. So we have people, we have young people, we have retirees, we have people who have been hit with illnesses and mental illness, people that have gone through significant trauma. And the one thing that I would say is the financial counsellors that are all around the country are really kind-hearted people. They're not in it for the money. You don't get paid much as a financial counsellor. I'm a volunteer, but we're there because we're really passionate about helping people thrive and get back up on their feet. It's a really good service, and I would encourage anyone who is struggling to give us a call. It's a free service. It's confidential. And the reason that I'm so passionate about it is I've actually seen how people can get back up on their feet and go on and really thrive. And that flows right through their family and right through the community.
And then you take those, that work that you do on the ground, and it makes you a better advocate, right? It makes you a better advocate to politicians, to kind of decision makers, to industry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get, I don't want to be tough, but there are a whole bunch of middle-aged men in suits that dream up plans to get people into debt, and there are some awful stuff going on to people who are really struggling. There's a lot of exploitation that happens with people, and what I like to be able to do is to see all that stuff and not only advocate for the clients and try and get a better deal, but also to bring awareness. This is what's happening to people who are really struggling, and try and give them a better shot at things. Because when you have, as you said in your opening remarks, mental health issues and financial issues are intertwined, and it can become a really vicious cycle. So being able to sit with someone who can really advocate for you is a really important part of that process.
And it's free.
It's free, and it's unbiased, and it's confidential.
Yeah, exactly. Those are three things that we know are really important to people, especially right now. There's a lot of shame and stigma around, mental illness, but also financial stress and financial distress. And I think, they're two sides of the same coin, as you said, Scott. Megan, sorry, you go.
Oh, so the only other thing that I was going to say is that at Christmas time, as a father of 4 children under the age of 10, even though I could put on the best spread ever, and my kids are probably going to still turn their nose up at it, but that one of the key pieces for me as dad is Christmas is all about giving and getting your kids to really get into the giving. So I've got my kids doing pocket money challenges. They're not spending a lot of money, but they're spending the money that they have earned. And that idea of actually it's not all about as many Christmas presents as you can get. It's more about that gift of giving. I would encourage people just to really fully embrace, because that is the true meaning of Christmas, rather than what has Santa got under the tree for me. But
Yeah.
sorry, do you get?
No, I think it's a really great message, and again, you know, we know that giving back to others is actually really good for your mental health as well. It makes you feel good. Makes you feel good, and it teaches. It can sometimes put things in perspective. Hey, Megan, we had a fantastic chat the other day, and one of the things that you talked about was your experience a few years ago of being in a pretty tight spot and being terrified about picking up the phone and asking your bank for help. And I think that's often a real impediment to people, and things get worse and worse and worse and worse. So if you wouldn't mind, I think it would be really helpful for people if you would share your story, Megan.
Yeah, I wasn't planned to talk on this, but yeah, we were talking about it the other day, weren't we? And yeah, I went through a really difficult situation about 8 years ago, and I'm on my own, and I have a mortgage. I have to manage my mental health and ill health at the best of times. And I just became overwhelmed and started to sink backwards in my finances. And I was I wish I had have known about this financial counselling service back then. But I was sinking deeper and deeper into debt and adding things to credit and trying to shift things between banks. I was super embarrassed, ashamed, as you talked about. And this kind of fed into my mental ill health as well. And we talk a lot at Beyond Blue about having hope. And I just lost all hope. I couldn't see how I could make my way out. And I just finally, and I kept putting it off. You kind of bury your head in the sand. You don't want to have to deal with it. It's scary. And I was, as I say, I'm on my own. So, but I did finally pick up the phone to the bank. And they were so kind and helpful. And I think that's my key message, that these people are there to help you. And they sorted out a plan for me. I had to call them back a few months later. We readjusted the plan. But from there, I was able to get that sense of relief. I felt like the whole world had come off my shoulders, and I was able to chip away and get back on my feet. So it is something that, yeah, the mental health and finances really can get intertwined. But I do really say it's super scary to call. It's humbling, but people are there to help, whether it's Scott or the bank, or you need to call up a utility, please do, because my lived experiences are there to help. And you can get yourself slowly back on your feet. It doesn't happen the next day, but slowly you can start chipping away.
Yeah. I think that's a really great place for me to hand back to you, Luke. Thank you, Scott and me. It's been really terrific talking to you. And obviously, we're really looking forward to answering your questions. But back to you, Luke.
Thank you so much, Georgie. And yeah, thank you, Megan, for sharing your experiences there. I was actually so engrossed in that conversation, I forgot I was hosting the webinar. So I'm just frantically trying to get my slides back up, and we're good to go. One of the things I want to pick up from which Georgie mentioned in her opening remarks is just the importance of us putting a plan in place when we know a stressful time is coming up. And I guess to help with that, Beyond Blue has released a new wellbeing action tool that I'd love to tell you a little bit about right now. I guess this is a tool that, as Georgie mentioned, it's a very simple way to develop a personalized wellbeing plan. It's a tool that we created with our lived experience community, including Megan. And we held a series of design workshops to really find out from people, how do they think about their well-being? What do they do to look after it? And what might they want in a well-being tool that's different to what's already out there in the market? And so I would love to share a few of those insights with you before I show you the tool.
Hey, Luke, I'm going to just jump in. You're in presenter mode, I think. So you're giving away all your secrets.
Oh, sorry about that. I will.
And don't ask me how to fix it because I wouldn't have a clue. There we go.
Sorry about that. I will. Is that okay now? Fantastic. Thanks for that, Georgie. And so there were really 4 insights that jumped out of these workshops. The first was what we heard was that well-being is about many small moments. It's about those accumulation of those actions that connect you to what is meaningful and enjoyable in your life. And it kind of reminded me a lot of the analogy that, you know, building your well-being is a little bit like fossicking for gold. If you go out looking to find a big gold nugget, you'll often come back disappointed. We don't change things overnight. But if you look for the flecks of gold, those little moments that matter, you can kind of gather them and accumulate them, and they can add up to something really, really valuable for your life. The second insight was this idea that people are the experts in their own experience. They didn't want from us a list of generic self-care tips. What they wanted was a place to think about what they've learned through trial and error uniquely works for them, and a place to document those learnings and to think about why they work. What is it about this action that seems to be helping me? The third insight was around the idea of a simple recipe. People wanted a way to think about their well-being that they could keep front of mind while they're on the go, that was easy to understand, easy to apply in a busy life. Very much, I guess, a back to basics approach, nothing too complicated. And the fourth insight was this idea of there's a lot of noise in the well-being space. There's a lot of advice that's hard to tell whether it's credible or not credible. So people really wanted a trusted source of information from a trusted organization. And so this is really come together, all of these insights to help us design this new tool, which is really 3 simple steps. The first step is really finding out and identifying what works for you across 4 key action areas. And these action areas are summed up by the acronym PACE. So it's really, how do you set the pace for your well-being? The P stands for pause. These are the actions that help you take the pressure down, stop, rest, reflect, check your thinking, check how you're interpreting situations, slow your breathing, have a do nothing Sunday, whatever it is that gives you a moment of pause in a busy life. The next step is A, which is act. These are the actions that help you function well. It might be things to look after your body, physical activity, a good night's sleep, nutritious food, but it might be actions that give you a sense of purpose, a reason to get out of bed, a feeling of contributing and being useful. The third area is connect. These are the actions that help you connect not only with other people, but with your community, your culture, nature, spirituality. We know that connection helps ground us and makes us feel valued and like we belong. And the fourth step is enjoy. These are the actions that you get a kick out of. It might be doing something fun. It might be something creative, something playful. It could be a silly video, whatever it is, ensuring that you are sprinkling across your week some things that give you a pleasant feeling. The next step is really thinking about why these actions help for you. And this was a kind of a bit of a unique idea from this workshop, that often we do the action, but we don't think about why this helps me. And understanding the why can really build that association between the action and its benefit that can help you motivate to do it when you don't really feel like doing it. And it also can help you be really clear on what are the tools in my toolbox and which ones can I use to help me in a particular situation. The third step is around planning to do these actions regularly. And it's very much a gentle intention. It's not a hard and fast rule that I'm going to go for a run seven days a week. It's this idea that I'm going to ask myself, how often do I need to do this action to reap the benefits? And I'm not going to set myself up to fail. I don't want to feel bad about myself if I don't do it every day. But it's really just encouraging yourself and rewarding yourself when you're doing things that are in your own best interests. And these tools, this comes together into a very, very short and brief interactive PDF where page 1 steps through the steps that I've just outlined. Page 2 is really your plan on a page. It's where you can put in the stuff that uniquely works for you against those 3 steps. And the third page is what we're calling our cheat sheet. We know that sometimes you want new ideas, you want some inspiration, you want to know what the research says does work. So we've got a list of ideas on that third page that you can try on and see if they work for you or not. And if they do work, pop them in your plan. So it's really these tools of hopefully something that is very practical and very personal. They're very strengths-based, they're positive, they kind of validate the personal wisdom of the user. And it really hopefully meets people where they're at rather than asking people to behave in ways that just feel unattainable at the moment. And so this is really the Wellbeing Action tool we've developed. And I'm really glad that Megan's here because lived experience voice was central in the design of these tools. So I would love Megan to bring you into the conversation now. And just firstly, I know you've already spoken a little bit about your experiences. Could you just briefly touch base on how you got involved with Beyond Blue and how you became to be involved in this project?
Yeah, so I've a lot of lived and living experience of mental ill health, from severe and chronic anxiety disorder, panic disorder that spiraled into agoraphobia. So I had 3 years where I was just terrified to leave the house. So Christmas was a nightmare. And in amongst that, clinical depression, suicidality, and more recently, an awareness of my trauma responses and PTSD. So when I sort of, not joke, but I'm sort of really aware that I only started to identify my true self at about 37. And it was a few years after that, and I started my own consulting business, that I really wanted to do more open and public work, sharing my story, because I just didn't see much around. And I actually started with Beyond Blue. I responded to a call out for the very first anxiety campaign. So one of the talking heads, as Jeff Kennett called it. I think it's still on YouTube. I'm the Racing Heart. And and from there, I became a speaker. So I've been a speaker and ambassador with Beyond Blue for 10 years now. So and it's very rewarding, and meet lots of wonderful people and organisations. And yeah, this tour was a call out through Blue Voices, which I've also been involved with. And I just was so intrigued what Beyond Blue would be doing for wellbeing. And my big thing was, we all have different baselines of what wellbeing is at. My wellbeing is different to Georgie's, to Scott's. I have anxiety. I might have a panic attack, but I still consider myself well. So I was really intrigued how the lived experience would be involved in this. And there are so many tools and apps out there that I feel can set you up for failure, and you just feel like you're not achieving and you're not doing what you're meant to do. So yeah, that's why I was sort of really passionate to sort of be part of the co-design.
Fantastic. Thank you, Megan. And amazing that you've delivered over 10 years of kind of service for Beyond Blue. Thank you so much for that. And the Ben Mendelsohn ad, I think, was the one 10 years ago, the anxiety ad, which is the top of my list of favorite Beyond Blue ads. And it is probably a bit unusual. I do have a favorite list of Beyond Blue ads, but that would be number one.
I joked that he played my, Ben Mendelsohn, Emmy Award winner, has played my beating heart.
So, Megan, in terms of the tool itself and how it was designed and the features of it, what stands out to you as something that you think is a really helpful feature for people?
Yeah, I think you've actually encapsulated it really well in your introduction. I think the fact that people can choose what their wellbeing tool looks like. There's no one telling you what to do. And guess what? No one need know. If I joke in my speeches, and I joke often, that part of my well-being is watching Real Housewives of some silly city. And it's sort of, that just brings me joy and relaxes me. So, and that's okay. It's sort of just do what works for you. And I really like in my agoraphobia recovery, and you would know, Luke, there's a big thing about cognitive behavior therapy and learning the evidence and sort of really focusing on what works and where the truths lay and the falsehoods lie. And I really like that component too, that you can sort of really consider in your planning, you know, why does this work? Why did it work last time? Why didn't I do it last Christmas or whatever it might be? And then the planning, you touched on that celebration piece, which again was a huge thing with my anxiety recovery, my agoraphobia recovery, was really celebrating the small wins and recognizing it. So whether it's as simple as buying stars to pop on your, you know, your action sheet that you've done it, or a big tick, or going and buying yourself flowers, or whatever it might be, sort of embedding that into the plan as well. So, but I really liked that, yeah, that it could be tailored to you.
I love that, Megan. I really like that perspective of almost, it's like you're being a little bit of a scientist for your own well-being and looking for the evidence of, is this actually helping me or not? And if it's not, let's try something else. And if it's helping me, let's try and do more of it. I love that perspective.
Yeah.
I guess my last quick question, Megan, is, so in terms of managing this stressful year, and we've spoken a lot about the different types of pressures, what are the little things, you know, that you would recommend or that you're going to do for yourself to get through this end of year?
Yeah, so I've had lots of great Christmases. I've had lots of shocking Christmases. So, and having had agoraphobia, as I say, that there were a number of Christmases that I saw the world float by and I wasn't involved, and it was an incredibly isolating and lonely time. So I think now I embrace and am grateful that I'm sort of well, and I enjoy the moments when I'm well and I'm okay. Last year, I ended up in a trauma response on Christmas Day. I hadn't planned for it, something, you know, but I just kept myself calm and thought, right, I'm going to get through this. I'm around good people. I'm very lucky to have extended family that love me. I'll get through it. It will pass. And I think that's the big thing I've learned, whether a Christmas is good or bad, whether you've got something on New Year's Eve or Christmas parties in the lead up, it passes. Just like what Scott was talking about with Christmas presents. I can't remember what I did a few years ago in a Christmas party. Did I enjoy it? Did I not enjoy it? But now it's also about when I've got a Christmas party with a client, for example, I plan to enjoy it, but I also know just even going, for me in Melbourne, going into the city on a tram, there's going to be chaos everywhere. I'll have an adrenaline flood. The next day I know to keep it quiet and be okay with that. I know I'll be exhausted. I'll know I'll possibly be exhausted after Christmas Day. Enjoy the solitude and quietness of Boxing Day and just embrace where I'm at life, in that life. I don't have children. I don't have, you know, what is meant to be a normal Christmas. I'll enjoy waking up. It used to upset me, but now I wake up on Christmas morning and just make an effort to say Merry Christmas to the cat. So it's sort of just embrace where you are in life. And I know it can be hard, but I think you just have to be, have those moments and have that perspective that you are where you are, and try and enjoy it and be okay with it.
Yeah, that's great advice, Megan. And I think something that you shared with me before this session as well was the idea that it's absolutely okay if you just don't like Christmas, and that remember that it will pass. It will pass and will be in January is, I guess, the other angle on this.
Yeah.
I might now bring back in Georgie and Scott to the conversation and broaden this out and take some of the fantastic questions that have been coming through in the Q&A. I might start off with a broad one that has cut across a few themes of the questions to start with. And it's this idea of, I guess we know in mental health that there is a stigma about opening up, but as we've touched on, there is also a stigma around struggling with your money, and the link with your self-worth can make people be reluctant to reach out for help or even to talk to others. So I guess, Scott, I might start with you on this one. And if you're worried about someone in your life that you think might be struggling financially, but they're not kind of opening up about it, what advice do you have about how to navigate that conversation?
That can be really tough because often, as you said, there's a lot of shame and guilt associated with not having their finances in order, and that can also be intertwined with mental health issues. Generally speaking, it is. So my view would be you want to give them the option of maybe calling the National Debt Helpline. Again, blatant plug, 1-800-007-007 is a good way of doing that. For couples, that idea of having a barefoot date night can be really empowering because it's often the first time a couple has sat down and spoken about how they manage their money. They don't have to do it jointly, but just having that conversation is really important. A few other people have been asking, what's the difference between a financial counselor and a financial advisor? Financial counselors are free and generally help people who are struggling to make ends meet. Financial advisors obviously cost money, but they can help you if you're looking to grow your wealth. And what I would say to people who are thinking about or in that position, call your super fund, and they'll often be able to refer you to a financial advisor. But with the other sort of the idea that getting confidence and control over your money starts with you. You can go and see a financial advisor who can give you a plan, but ultimately it's you that has to take ownership of it. And again, that is what builds the confidence and control when you start to just get those little wins that Megan had when she picked up the phone and called her bank. Now, if you're not up to doing that, you can obviously call a financial counselor and they can help you as well. But it's just that idea. The thing that I say, if there's one thing that I would say to people is you have more control than you think. And if you get on the phone and you talk to someone, whether it be your bank or a financial counselor, that is how you move forward. It's the people that get themselves into lots of trouble are the ones that shut down and just don't communicate. If you are communicating either to someone like me or to your bank, you're going to be okay. It's just when you shut down that things happen, just like in any relationship, So again, I would encourage people, what we're focusing on is confidence and control, and that is not an income level. That is a behavior and a mindset.
Yeah, great advice, Scott. I might just do a very quick question with you, Scott, before we move on to Georgie and Megan. We've had several questions coming in about people who aren't necessarily struggling to pay their bills right now, but they're very worried about the next few months with unstable employment, low super balances, rising interest rates. So I guess the question is, can they contact the National Debt Helpline now, or is it really now's the time to kind of read your book and get their buckets in place? And how do you advise people on the sequencing and navigation of what to do when?
Don't want to be one of those guys, the author that's plugging his book, but that is a good start for people that are struggling. Oh, there are lots of good books out there. One of the things that Beyond Blue, one of the key messages is early. We're getting on this early. We're not going to think about, we're not going to leave it until January or February when the bills mount up and we have a whole new set of expenses. With kids going back to school, we want to get there early. So for me, the sooner you do that and have a barefoot date night, even if it's by yourself, take the cat and start working through those processes. Again, it seems like a shameless self-promotion, but I have had literally thousands and thousands of people now, books sold millions of copies, that have told me just how those little things that they have done has really boosted their confidence and control. So that's what I would suggest. If you are looking to grow your wealth, obviously talk to your super fund. If you're really struggling or you've got someone who is struggling in your life, go and talk to a financial counselor. But that idea is that it comes from you. It doesn't come from somebody else. It comes from you. And really a financial counselor's job is to walk beside you, but to empower you, because that's where the change happens.
Yeah, great. Thank you. We might move over to Georgie and Megan now. I've had a lot of questions about the heightened loneliness that people experience around this time of year. I guess specifically a question here. I'm a single mum with 2 adult boys, and after Christmas Day, I find this period quite lonely. What strategies or suggestions do you recommend to combat loneliness? Georgie or Megan, who would like to take a first crack at that one?
Oh, look, I think I'm probably far less qualified than Megan on this one, but I reckon, and look, let me be really clear. I have experienced deep loneliness in my life, and it's a horrible feeling. It's a really horrible feeling, including when you've got loads of people around you and you don't feel connected to them. So, Amanda, thanks so much for your question. My advice to you would be to plan ahead. If you know that this is how you're going to feel, or you anticipate this is how you're going to feel, what are the things that you can plan for to do on Boxing Day, or that week after Christmas when your kids leave? Can you volunteer? There'd be so many organisations that would be really appreciative of your time. And is it a local soup kitchen? Is it, I don't know, can you get together with some girlfriends and just go out for a walk? What are the things that actually don't cost any money, but and I think the act of planning ahead, and I think that's what the action tool that we're launching today is all about. It's like, find out what's going to bring you a little bit of joy, think about why, and then plan for it. So that would be my advice. But Megan, I'm sure you've got much more wise things to say.
Oh, well, I don't know about advice, but I've certainly got the empathy. So, and I think it's something that that's a rotten period because so many people go away. So it just feels like, as I mentioned, I'm in Melbourne and it just feels like a ghost town and no one's around. So that can further escalate the feeling of loneliness. So what I now try and do is just plan ahead in terms of who is around in Melbourne and do they have time between Christmas and New Year's and catch up for a coffee? Can we plan something fun to do, like go to a park, or it doesn't have to cost money. Otherwise, I've done things in the past where, and I'm aging and timing myself out of when I was at critical points, but we can do it now even more easily. But I remember thinking, right, I'm going to be really lonely, no one's around, and I'm too scared to do whatever. I'm going to go to the DVD store and just have a movie marathon, plan for it. And I still do that sometimes on a Boxing Day, right? What are those classics I keep saying I want to watch, and those movies, So it's so try and just think of anything that sparks joy. So is there a podcast, and even revisit things that you know already. If there's a movie or a show that you love and that's easily accessible to you, watch it. Get on your favorite music, listen to it. Get your favorite book, read it. Just really tap in what can make you feel better. And I do say again, all things pass. So before you know it, people will be back, your children will be back. So just try and get through the moments. And if you have to peel it back, I always say to people that are struggling, take it day by day. If that's too much, take it hour by hour. If that's too much, take it minute by minute.
Yeah, wonderful.
Can I just jump in and just say, look, Amanda, and just don't forget we're here too, right? And if it's not picking up the phone, it's actually, having a look at our online community forums. That is such an extraordinarily supportive community. There's a reason why 1.5 million people use it every month, and you'll find such support, and it's completely anonymous. It can feel a little bit scary, but go and have a look. Go and have a look at it, and perhaps register and go and have a little look and see what it's all about. But that's a place you can turn to anytime, just for support from people who are going through similar things.
Thank you for because that's absolutely, even before Beyond Blue, I sort of found online chats very early on in the internet days for agoraphobia, and the connections you can make in these chat rooms can be incredible, and you very quickly realize you're not alone.
Yes, thank you. And we know that obviously connection is the strongest protective factor we have for our mental health. So at this time of year, keeping an eye out for those around us in our street, in our workplaces, reaching out and extending those invitations is so important. And we know that often those invitations won't be picked up, but we need to keep sending them anyway. We need to keep sending them. And one day someone might be in a place to pick it up, and that can really change a lot of things for someone. We are now a few minutes until 12:30, so very sadly we're going to have to start winding up. I guess a few final messages I would like to share. Please know that Beyond Blue has so many resources available that you can use for yourself, for the communities you work with. Please pick them up and share them. We have our Wellbeing Action Tool. We'll pop a link to that into the chat box. We have a brand new evidence guide, which really shows us what does the research say works to look after our mental well-being. We've collaborated with Financial Counselling Australia to develop resources for businesses and other organisations who are dealing with people in financial distress at the moment, looking at that link between money and mental health and what are some supportive responses along a continuum of concern. So please check out these resources and share them with your networks. We really send an enormous thank you to Scott Pape, Megan Barrow and Georgie Harmon for sharing their advice and experiences with us today. I think this has been a really insightful conversation that has really emphasised the fact that while there is a lot going on in the world, and rest assured, Beyond Blue every day advocates at a big picture level for us to create a more mentally healthy society. We know that as an individual, there are things in our control that we can do that will make a difference. So I really appreciate the advice today. I thank everyone for attending, and please don't forget to fill out our feedback survey on the way out. It really helps inform how we do these webinars, what we might make the next webinar about. So any feedback is really appreciated. So thank you to the panel again. Thank you to the audience, and we will catch you next time.